Funny, rebellious, and full of surprises, Stripes, 1981, is not just a simple piece of entertainment but a journey where every rule was shattered. Behind the bursts of laughter lie countless behind-the-scenes stories so bizarre and unbelievable that you might rub your eyes in disbelief. From John Candy insisting on showing up in underwear on set, to a mud wrestling match so dangerous it nearly spun out of control, to absurd ideas like installing a coffee machine in a military vehicle. Stripes stands as a vivid testament to the power of creativity that defies all boundaries. Get ready to dive into 20 hilarious and outrageous facts about Stripes you've probably never heard before. 1. The chaotic and dangerous mud wrestling scene. Among the most unforgettable moments in Stripes, the mud wrestling scene stands out, yet few know it was also one of the toughest and riskiest sequences to shoot. The crew didn't fake it, they used real mud. Unfortunately, filming took place on a freezing day, leaving both cast and crew shivering in the muck. One of the actresses even developed an ear infection from the dirty mud, while its stench lingered on set for days afterward. Beyond the physical strain, the scene sparked major trouble with the MPAA rating board. The initial cut was deemed far too explicit and nearly slapped with an X rating, which would have doomed its release. Columbia Pictures had to trim down multiple shots and resubmit the film twice before securing an R rating. In the end, though, the scene became one of the film's comedic highlights. The mud wrestling didn't just underline the absurdity of the characters, but also captured the filmmaker's fearless, experimental spirit, the very energy that made Stripes both wild and unforgettable. 2. John Candy and the one-of-a-kind underwear. In Stripes, the moment John Candy dives into the mud wrestling match became legendary, and what made the scene even more absurd was the underwear he wore. In truth, this bizarre idea came straight from Candy himself. Originally, the mud wrestling sequence wasn't even in the script. It was only after director Ivan Reitman recognized Candy's natural comedic brilliance that he decided to add the scene to fully showcase him. Candy agreed instantly, but with one outrageous condition. He would wear the tightest pair of underwear he could possibly find. That choice wasn't just a private joke, it was his way of amplifying the ridiculousness of the scene. Watching Candy, with his large frame, thrash around in the mud in such ridiculous attire had the entire crew laughing out loud on set. For audiences, the scene quickly transcended a mere gag to become an unforgettable comedic icon. It also revealed Candy's commitment to his craft, unafraid to make himself look completely ridiculous if it meant bringing laughter. That fearless dedication helped cement his status as one of the greatest comedic actors of the 1980s. 3. Bill Murray went AWOL in real life. Behind the scenes of Stripes, Bill Murray lived up to his reputation for unpredictability. But this time, it went far beyond playful improvisation. He frequently vanished from the set for hours, sometimes even days, without warning. The crew was thrown into chaos, and director Ivan Reitman eventually admitted there was no way to control him. Reitman had no choice but to adapt. He allowed Murray to roam free, improvising nearly all of his lines and actions. While this made the filming process extremely difficult, it also produced moments of comedic brilliance no script could have engineered. Reitman once compared directing Murray to riding a bull in a tornado, chaotic, uncontrollable, yet thrilling at every turn. Murray also gained a reputation for arriving late, leaving early, and ignoring the script entirely. For most productions, this would have been a nightmare, but for Stripes, it became part of the magic. His unpredictability turned him into the ultimate wild card, and that unrestrained energy played a crucial role in cementing the film's status as a classic of the 1980s. 4. The Czechoslovak border guard scene was pure improvisation. One of the most surprising moments in Stripes takes place at the Czechoslovak border, though it was actually filmed in Kentucky. The crew hired a group of real soldiers to portray border guards. Ironically, several of them spoke little to no English, and one soldier simply nodded yes to everything Bill Murray said. When the cameras rolled, this awkward setup became the perfect playground for Murray. Known for his improvisational genius, he turned the soldiers' confusion into spontaneous comedy. One of the most memorable bits came when Murray tried to communicate with a guard who had no idea what he was saying, producing an exchange that was both authentic and hilarious. Director Ivan Reitman chose to keep these unscripted moments in the final cut, believing they captured the true essence of Stripes: chaotic, improvised, and irresistibly funny. 5. The cast lived like real soldiers on base. To give Stripes an authentic feel rather than just another goofy comedy, director Ivan Reitman made a bold choice. He placed the entire main cast in an actual military barracks at Fort Knox. Throughout filming, they weren't just acting like soldiers, they were living like soldiers. The actors stayed together in the barracks, joining in activities with a military twist. Sometimes they competed in push-up contests, sometimes they pulled pranks on each other late at night, and often they held poker games that went on until dawn. Bill Murray and John Candy, of course, led most of the mischief. Candy even earned the unofficial title of Snack Sergeant because he always carried a stash of treats for everyone. This shared experience not only filled their days with laughter, but also forged genuine camaraderie among the cast. That bond translated seamlessly onto the screen, making their chemistry feel natural and lived in. For audiences, these behind-the-scenes stories gave Stripes a nostalgic, collective charm, transforming it from a simple comedy into a timeless ensemble memory. 6. The EM-50 Urban Assault Vehicle, the crew's nightmare. In Stripes, the EM-50 Urban Assault Vehicle almost acts like a leading character, a secret military vehicle packed with weapons and advanced technology. But behind the scenes, this legend was nothing more than a modified GMC motorhome, and it tormented the crew at every turn. To cover different sequences, multiple versions had to be built. One for driving, one solely for interior shots, and another fitted with fake weapons for action scenes. Yet none of them worked smoothly. At times, the vehicle even broke down in front of the cameras, forcing the crew to drag it into frame just to get the shot. Eventually, a full team of mechanics had to be stationed on set, constantly fixing the vehicle and even adding extra comedic touches, like installing a coffee machine inside to make the absurdity work. Despite all its technical failures, the EM-50 still became one of the film's most unforgettable icons. Proof that persistence and creativity can turn frustration into legend. 7. A last-minute ending with unexpected charm. Originally, Stripes had no "Where are they now?" segment showing what became of the characters. But after test screenings, audiences expressed a strong desire to see what happened to the misfit soldiers once the story ended. To answer that demand, Ivan Reitman decided to create a brand new ending. One late night, Reitman wrote the entire segment in just a few hours. He even recorded the narration himself, building a makeshift studio out of blankets and pillows in his hotel room, reading lines with only a cup of coffee for company. The entire recording was done in a single take. The result was a finale that turned out funny, nostalgic, and surprisingly fitting, giving the film a perfect sense of closure. For viewers, it wasn't just an ending, but a heartfelt tribute to the goofy yet lovable characters who defined Stripes. 8. Harold Ramis' first step in front of the camera. Before Stripes, Harold Ramis was best known as a writer and director. Yet this film marked his very first appearance as an actor. Initially, Ramis was only involved as co-writer, but when the crew couldn't find the right face for Russell Ziskey, John Winger's Bill Murray sidekick, it was Murray himself who persuaded Ramis to take the role. At first, Ramis was deeply anxious. He often forgot lines and sometimes came across stiff in front of the camera. But Murray, with his improvisational and playful nature, constantly joked around, creating a relaxed atmosphere that helped Ramis gradually shed his nerves. Within weeks, Ramis not only caught up, but became a vital part of the on-screen chemistry. Ramis's mix of awkward innocence and sharp wit brought a unique flavour to Stripes. This role didn't just launch his acting career, it paved the way for classics like Ghostbusters, 1984, where Ramis once again teamed up with Murray. 9. Fort Knox and the US Army's disappointment. Most of the training sequences in Stripes were filmed at the famous Fort Knox, with direct support from the US Army. At first, military officials were enthusiastic, believing the film would serve as a positive showcase to boost the Army's image and attract recruits. But once the finished cut was revealed, that enthusiasm quickly turned into frustration. Instead of professionalism and discipline, the audience saw drunk soldiers joyriding in tanks, mud wrestling, and a slew of antics that hardly reflected military values. The nudity and satirical jabs at Army life angered several officials, with some even demanding that the US Army logo be removed from the film's credits. Despite the controversy, Stripes became a massive success and a comedy classic. The Fort Knox setting delivered an authenticity that no studio lot could replicate. If the Army felt slighted, audiences felt the opposite, embracing the film precisely because it turned rigid military order into a playground for laughter and rebellion. 10. That's the fact, Jack. An improvised line turned legendary. Few realise the iconic line, "That's the fact, Jack," was never in the script. During one take, John Candy, always quick to seize the moment for comedy, suddenly blurted it out. No one on set expected it to matter, yet it instantly became one of the most memorable quotes in Stripes. What's more surprising is how far it spread beyond the movie. The line ended up on promotional posters, licensed merchandise, and even entered real military culture. Some drill instructors admitted to using it during training sessions to fire up their troops. Candy later admitted he only threw it in to fill a pause, never imagining it would become so influential. But that moment of spontaneity perfectly showcased his comic genius, turning an offhand remark into a piece of pop culture history. 11. The original script was written for Cheech and Chong. What many don't know is that Stripes was originally conceived as a vehicle for comedy duo Cheech and Chong. The first draft was steeped in their trademark stoner humour, envisioning the pair joining the army and stumbling through absurd scenarios fueled by their hazy antics. However, Cheech and Chong declined the project due to creative differences with the producers. Columbia Pictures had to pivot, bringing in Bill Murray and Harold Ramis instead. The script underwent major rewrites, though some remnants of the original concept remained, such as gags about drugs and the irreverent attitude toward authority. One example is the duffel bag packed with contraband, a detail lifted directly from the Cheech and Chong version. Without Cheech and Chong, Stripes still found its identity through the improvisation and unique comedic styles of Murray and Ramis. The unexpected change turned what could have been a stoner farce into a timeless comedy classic, proving that early setbacks can pave the way for lasting success. 12. Bill Murray, the master of improvisation on set. In Stripes, Bill Murray wasn't just the leading man, he was the source of endless, unpredictable chaos. Known for his natural gift for improvisation, Murray pushed that talent to the extreme during this film. Most of his lines never appeared in the original script. Instead, he created them on the spot, turning each scene into an unpredictable adventure. Director Ivan Reitman once described it this way: "Directing Bill Murray was like riding a wild beast in the middle of a storm. You couldn't control it, but you couldn't look away either." Murray not only reinvented dialogue, he reshaped the way he interacted with his co-stars, making exchanges feel startlingly real and alive. Of course, this free-flowing style also caused headaches. The crew constantly struggled with continuity, while Harold Ramis often stayed up rewriting pages each night to keep pace with Murray's changes. Yet in the end, that spirit of improvisation became the soul of Stripes, ensuring the film stood apart as something wholly unique. 13. The mud wrestling scene shut down the cameras. The mud wrestling sequence in Stripes wasn't only hilarious, it was a technical nightmare. To keep it authentic, the crew used real mud. A lot of it. The result? Mud splattered not just on the actors but all over the camera lenses. At times, the footage turned into nothing but a blurry smear, forcing the crew to stop repeatedly just to clean the gear. The stench was another nightmare. It lingered in the set for days, so strong that some crew members refused to return unless given boots and masks. The shoot dragged on for hours, and by the end of each take, actors had to be blasted clean with high-pressure hoses to remove the thick layers of muck. Despite the misery, the scene became one of the most memorable highlights of Stripes. It showcased not only the film's outrageous humour, but also the crew's commitment to pushing through discomfort for the sake of comedy. The dirtier, the better. 14. Warren Oates was so strict it intimidated everyone. In Stripes, Sergeant Holker embodied military discipline, and Warren Oates carried that sternness straight off screen. Coming from a background in serious drama, Oates thrived on precision and structure, so he had little patience for Bill Murray's freewheeling improvisation. During filming, Oates often showed open frustration with the chaos. At one point, he even pulled Murray aside and bluntly told him, "If you can't act like a soldier, at least try to act like an actor." Even when the cameras stopped, Oates stayed in character, barking orders at extras and demanding they behave like real recruits. While his severity created tension, it also grounded the film. Holker became the anchor that kept the comedy from spiraling out of control. Ivan Reitman later admitted, "We needed someone like Warren to hold everything together, and he did it perfectly." 15. Harold Ramis, the screenwriter. Rewriting every single day, Harold Ramis wasn't just Russell Zisky on screen, he was also the film's co-writer. But with Bill Murray constantly improvising, Ramis had no choice but to rewrite the script nearly every night. Murray would alter dialogue, invent jokes on the spot, or shift the tone of entire scenes, leaving the original draft obsolete. After each shoot, Ramis stayed late revising pages to match the new material and prepping for the next day. He described it as working on a living script, something that morphed daily to capture the unpredictable energy of the set. Despite the exhaustion, Ramis used this chaos to highlight the strengths of the ensemble. He added bits for John Candy, crafted moments for Judge Reinhold, and shaped his own interplay with Murray. That flexibility gave Stripes its natural, unpredictable rhythm, a quality that set it apart from the formulaic comedies of its era. 16. The EM50 and its one-of-a-kind coffee maker. In a film overflowing with improvisation like Stripes, it's almost fitting that the EM50, billed as a top-secret military weapon, ended up equipped with a coffee maker. At first, the EM50 was nothing more than a GMC motorhome refitted to look like a futuristic combat vehicle. But as filming went on, and the crew leaned further into absurdity, someone decided to bolt a working coffee machine right into its interior. What makes it funnier is that it wasn't just for show. The machine actually worked, and both cast and crew often brewed coffee between takes. The image of a combat-ready war machine capable of firing rockets while also serving up espresso quickly became a running gag. It perfectly captured the sillier the better spirit of Stripes, where even the smallest gag could turn iconic. 17. A real sergeant loses his patience on set. To give the training scenes a sense of realism, the filmmakers brought in an actual US Army sergeant as a technical advisor. But instead of helping smooth things along, he became a constant source of friction. Unimpressed by the chaos and parody style of Stripes, he repeatedly scolded the actors, and at times even barked at director Ivan Reitman during takes. He was so strict that he often interrupted scenes to demand precise regulation-style movements from the cast. Eventually, the crew had to remove him from the immediate filming area. Still, his real voice can be heard in the background of several scenes, particularly those featuring troop formations. His presence created a strange contrast. the rigid discipline of a real drill sergeant clashing with Bill Murray's wild, improvised comedy. That clash made the atmosphere both tense and hilarious, exactly the kind of serious but not serious energy that defined the film. 18. The mud wrestling scene almost got axed. Few realised that the infamous mud wrestling scene in Stripes came dangerously close to being cut entirely. When the sequence was first submitted to the MPAA, it was deemed far too explicit and threatened with an X rating, essentially a death sentence for theatrical release at the time. Ivan Reitman and Columbia Pictures scrambled to salvage it. They trimmed out several camera angles, blurred certain details, and shortened the sequence to tone it down. After 2 resubmissions, the film finally secured an R rating, giving it a chance to reach mainstream audiences. Even after the edits, the scene retained its comedic charm. In fact, many fans later argued that the awkward cuts made it even funnier, transforming it into one of the film's most unforgettable highlights. 19. Judge Reinhold's first step onto the big screen. Before breaking out with Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Judge Reinhold made his film debut in Stripes as Elmo, a young recruit, awkward and out of place among the unruly misfits. Though small, the role marked an important turning point in his career. As a first-timer, Reinhold was visibly nervous, often forgetting lines or botching movements. Yet director Ivan Reitman chose to keep him, believing that his natural clumsiness brought a unique authenticity to Elmo. Reinhold later recalled learning countless lessons from veterans like Bill Murray and John Candy. One memorable moment came when he accidentally elbowed Murray during a group scene. Instead of being upset, Murray simply laughed and said, "It's fine, kid. You're still learning." That reassurance not only boosted Reinhold's confidence, but also confirmed he was on the right path in pursuing acting. 20. The film was initially underestimated. During production, no one in the Stripes crew believed they were creating a box office sensation. Columbia Pictures regarded it merely as a light-hearted military comedy, with only modest revenue expectations. At that time, many critics were even pessimistic, predicting that the disjointed script and excessive improvisation would doom the film to be quickly forgotten. However, when Stripes finally premiered, all those forecasts were overturned. The film quickly earned double its budget and rose to become one of the most iconic comedies of the 1980s. Audiences were captivated by its controlled chaos, sharp humour, and the rebellious spirit of the characters. More importantly, Stripes was not only a commercial triumph, but also a launching pad that opened or strengthened the careers of renowned names such as Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and John Candy. With its clever fusion of improvisation and comedy, Stripes secured its place among the timeless classics that cinema enthusiasts cannot ignore. Stripes was not merely a military comedy, but a true emblem of rebellion and free-spirited creativity in the 1980s. The fascinating behind-the-scenes stories, from Bill Murray's unpredictable improvisations to the chaotic mud wrestling scene, elevated the film into a lasting legend. Even after more than 40 years, Stripes continues to enchant audiences, standing as clear proof of the power of improvisation in art. And so we have just uncovered the unique and sometimes unbelievable backstage truths of Stripes, the film that carved its name into cinema history. From Bill Murray's explosive improvisational moments, to the muddy wrestling spectacle, to the wild stories behind the camera, all of these combine to create an irreplaceable monument. If you found this video engaging, be sure to hit like, leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe so you won't miss the upcoming surprises. Thank you for staying with us until the end, and remember, sometimes chaos itself is the key to unlocking greatness. See you again in the next video.